There are moments when you catch yourself staring at nothing, just sitting there feeling something you can't name. It's not sadness exactly, not loneliness in the way we usually understand it. It's something deeper, something older. A quiet ache that lives beneath all your thoughts, all your plans, all your busy days. And if you're honest with yourself, really honest, you know what it is. You know what every human being secretly carries, the longing to love and to be loved in return. This isn't about romance, not really. It's about something Martin Heidegger spent his entire life trying to articulate, something he called our fundamental way of being in the world. We are not isolated minds trapped in bodies. We are not disconnected observers of reality. We are beings who exist always in relation, always reaching out, always seeking connection, meaning, recognition. We are at our core beings who long to matter to someone else, and to feel that we are seen, truly seen by another. But here is where the paradox begins. This deepest desire, this need to love and be loved, is also the source of our greatest suffering, because to long for love is to open yourself to absence, to rejection, to the crushing weight of invisibility. Heidegger understood this better than most. He saw that our existence is not a neutral fact. It is always colored by mood, by feeling, by what he called our thrownness into a world we didn't choose. And in that world, we discover very quickly that love is not guaranteed. Connection is not automatic. We can spend our entire lives reaching out and never quite touching what we seek. I once knew someone who described it like this. She said, "I feel like I'm shouting into a well and all I hear is my own echo." She wasn't unloved. She had friends, family, people who cared, but something essential was missing. Something she couldn't articulate but felt with absolute certainty. The love she received didn't reach the place inside her that needed it most. And the love she gave seemed to disappear into a void. She was surrounded by people and yet profoundly alone. Not because no one cared, but because the kind of recognition she longed for, the kind of seeing she needed, was so specific, so particular, that it felt impossible to find. This is the human condition Heidegger described. We exist in what he called being with others. We are fundamentally social creatures. Our very sense of self is constructed through our relationships, through the way others perceive us, respond to us, acknowledge us. But this also means we are vulnerable, dependent. We need others not just for survival, but for the very possibility of meaningful existence. And that need, that dependency, is terrifying, because it means our deepest fulfillment is always, at least partially, out of our control. Think about it. Really think about it. When was the last time you felt truly seen? Not admired, not praised, not even liked, but seen, understood at a level so deep that words became unnecessary. When someone looked at you and recognized not just your surface, not just your accomplishments or your failures, but the essence of who you are. The struggling, striving, hoping being beneath all the masks. That moment is rare, so rare that some people go their entire lives without experiencing it, and in its absence we feel like ghosts, transparent, walking through a world that looks right through us. Heidegger called this experience anxiety, not the everyday worry about deadlines or bills, but a profound unease about our place in existence, the anxiety of not mattering, of being replaceable, of living and dying without leaving a trace in anyone's heart. This is why we crave love with such intensity. Love is the antidote to invisibility. It is the proof that we exist, that we matter, that our presence in this world makes a difference to at least one other being. When someone loves us, truly loves us, we are no longer lost in the vastness of existence. We have been found. We have been chosen. We have been made real. But here's what most people don't understand. The longing for love is not just about receiving. It's equally about giving. We want to love as much as we want to be loved. We want to matter to someone, to be necessary, to be the person whose absence would leave a hole in another's life. This is why unrequited love hurts so much. It's not just that we don't receive what we long for. It's that our love, our care, our devotion has nowhere to land. We are left holding something precious with no one to give it to. And that unused love turns to grief, to a kind of mourning for a connection that never was. I remember watching an old man in a cafe once. He was sitting alone, and every time the door opened, he would look up with this expression of desperate hope. And then, when it wasn't who he was waiting for, his face would collapse back into resignation. He did this for 2 hours, just sitting there watching the door, hoping, waiting for someone who never came. And I wondered how many times he had done this. How many afternoons he had spent in that exact spot, performing this small ritual of hope and disappointment. His desire to be reunited with whoever he was waiting for was so palpable it filled the entire room. And yet there he sat, alone, still hoping. This is the tragedy Heidegger saw at the heart of human existence. We are beings oriented toward connection, but we live in a world that constantly frustrates that orientation. We reach out and grasp air. We speak and are misunderstood. We love and are not loved in return. Or worse, we are loved in ways that feel like they miss the point entirely. Someone loves the version of us we present to the world, but not the confused, frightened, hoping creature we actually are. And so even in the midst of being loved, we can feel profoundly alone. There's a particular kind of pain in being loved for who you're not, in having someone adore an image of you while the real you remains unseen. It's like being in a room full of people at your own funeral, listening to them talk about someone you don't recognize. They're praising you, mourning you, saying beautiful things, but none of it touches you, because they're talking about a stranger. You're still here, still alive, still desperate to be known, and yet completely invisible even in all that attention. This is why so many people feel loneliest in relationships, why marriages can become prisons of mutual isolation, why families can gather around a table and each person still feels completely alone. Because proximity is not the same as connection. Affection is not the same as recognition. You can be held and still feel like you're falling. You can be surrounded by people who claim to love you and still feel like no one actually knows you. The love exists, but it doesn't reach you. It hovers around the edges of who you really are without ever touching the center. And here is where the danger becomes clear. When we long for love and don't receive it, or when we receive a version of love that doesn't match our need, we begin to doubt ourselves. We start to think the problem is us, that we're too much or not enough, too sensitive, too needy, too complicated. We internalize the rejection or the misunderstanding and turn it into a verdict about our worth. We begin to believe that we are unlovable, not because someone told us this explicitly, but because the kind of love we need keeps eluding us. And absence, we decide, must mean something. It must be evidence, proof that we are fundamentally flawed. But Heidegger would say this is a misunderstanding. The difficulty of finding authentic connection isn't evidence of your inadequacy. It's evidence of how rare genuine recognition actually is. Most people are so lost in their own struggles, their own longing, their own anxiety, that they can barely see themselves, let alone truly see another. We're all walking around like the blind leading the blind, reaching out in the dark, hoping our hands will find something solid to hold on to. The fact that we miss each other so often isn't surprising. What's surprising is that we ever manage to connect at all. There's a concept in Heidegger's work that's crucial here. He talks about authenticity, about the difference between existing in the mode of the they and existing as your genuine self. Most of us, most of the time, live according to what they expect. We perform the roles we think others want us to play. We present versions of ourselves that we hope will be acceptable, lovable, good enough. And in doing so, we become strangers to ourselves. We lose touch with what we actually feel, what we actually need, what we actually long for. We become so skilled at being what others want that we forget who we are beneath all that performance. And here's the cruel irony. This performance is meant to make us more lovable. We think if we can just be good enough, normal enough, successful enough, attractive enough, then love will come. Then we'll be chosen. Then we'll finally feel that deep recognition we crave. But the opposite happens. The more we perform, the less visible we become. Because what people are responding to isn't us. It's the mask, the carefully constructed image. And deep down we know this. We know that even when people say they love us, they love someone who doesn't quite exist. And so the loneliness persists, even in the midst of being loved. This is what Heidegger meant when he talked about fallenness. Not a moral judgment, but a description of how easily we lose ourselves in the expectations and opinions of others. We fall into inauthenticity. We become absorbed in the anonymous chatter of what one does and what people think. And in that fall we lose touch with our own being. We forget that we are not just a collection of roles and performances. We are beings with the capacity to choose, to decide, to live according to our own sense of meaning. But that capacity gets buried under layers of social conditioning and fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being seen as we actually are and found wanting. I think this is why vulnerability feels so dangerous. To be vulnerable is to let someone see past the performance, to show them the parts of yourself you usually hide, the confusion, the doubt, the need, the longing, the parts that aren't pretty or impressive or easy to love. And when you do this, when you really let yourself be seen, the stakes become terrifyingly high. Because now they're not responding to an image, they're responding to you. And if they reject you now, it's not the mask they're rejecting. It's the reality beneath it. That rejection goes deeper. It confirms your worst fear, that the real you, the actual you, is not enough. But here's what Heidegger understood. This fear, this vulnerability, this risk of rejection is not something to avoid. It's the price of authentic existence. If you want to be truly seen, truly known, truly loved for who you actually are, you have to be willing to show who you actually are. You have to step out from behind the mask, even knowing you might be rejected. Even knowing the real you might not be what others want or expect or can handle. Because the alternative is to spend your entire life being loved as a stranger, to have connection that never quite touches you, to die without ever having been fully known. And this is where the transformation begins. The shift from seeking love to being capable of love, from trying to be loved to having the courage to love authentically. Heidegger believed that authentic existence requires what he called resoluteness, a commitment to living according to your own sense of meaning rather than being swept along by what they expect. And part of that resoluteness in the context of love means being willing to risk being seen, to offer yourself as you are, not as you think you should be, to love from that genuine place rather than from the place of performance and strategy. This doesn't mean being careless or unwise. It doesn't mean throwing your heart at anyone who crosses your path. It means learning to distinguish between authentic connection and its many substitutes. It means recognizing when you're being invited into genuine mutuality versus when you're being asked to perform. It means having the courage to walk away from relationships where you must constantly hide yourself in order to be acceptable. And it means being willing to wait, sometimes for a very long time, for the kind of connection that actually nourishes you. Because here's a truth that's hard to accept. Not everyone is capable of the kind of seeing you need. Not everyone can handle the depth of who you are. Not everyone has done the work to become authentic themselves, and therefore they can't recognize authenticity in others. They're still living in the mode of the they, still performing, still hiding, and they need you to stay on the surface with them. To go deep would threaten their carefully maintained illusions. And when you encounter these people, which you will over and over again, the healthy response is not to diminish yourself. It's not to make yourself smaller or simpler or more palatable. It's to accept that this is not your person. This is not the connection that will nourish you, and to keep looking. This is incredibly difficult, especially in a world that tells us we should be grateful for any attention, any affection, any sign that someone wants us. We're taught to settle, to compromise, to accept relationships that leave us half-starved for real connection because half is better than nothing. But Heidegger would disagree. He would say that settling for inauthentic connection is worse than being alone, because it gives you the illusion of having what you need while actually preventing you from seeking what would truly nourish you. It's like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. It might feel like you're addressing the need, but you're actually making the problem worse. And yet being alone while you wait for authentic connection is its own kind of suffering. There's no way around this. Heidegger was clear that anxiety, that existential unease, is not something we can eliminate. It's part of being human, part of being thrown into a world where nothing is guaranteed, and we must constantly create meaning in the face of uncertainty. The loneliness of waiting, of not yet having found the connection you long for, is real. It hurts. And there's no platitude that makes it hurt less. But what you can do, what Heidegger believed was essential, is to use that loneliness as a teacher, to let it show you what matters to you, to let it clarify your values, your needs, your sense of what kind of life you want to live. Because loneliness, when we really feel it instead of running from it, has a way of stripping away everything false. It shows us that status doesn't matter if we have no one to share it with, that success means nothing if we're not seen by someone who matters, that all the achievements and acquisitions in the world can't fill the specific hunger for authentic human connection. In this way, loneliness can become a kind of wisdom, a reminder of what's actually important. It can teach you to stop chasing empty substitutes, to stop trying to fill the void with busyness or distraction or relationships that don't actually nourish you. It can give you the clarity to say no to what doesn't serve you and the patience to wait for what does. This doesn't make the loneliness less painful, but it gives it meaning. It transforms it from pointless suffering into a kind of sacred waiting, a preparation for the connection that will eventually come. And here's something crucial. While you're waiting, while you're alone, you're not just passively enduring, you're becoming the person capable of the kind of love you seek. Because authentic connection requires authentic people. If you want to be truly seen, you must be willing to truly see. If you want to be loved as you are, you must be willing to love others as they are. If you want someone to meet you in your depth, you must be willing to go to that depth yourself. The work of becoming authentic, of learning to live with resoluteness and clarity, is not separate from the work of preparing for love. It's the same work. This means facing your own shadows, your own wounds, the ways you've learned to hide and perform and protect yourself. It means being honest about your patterns, the ways you might push people away or pull them in for the wrong reasons, the ways you might confuse intensity for intimacy or comfort for connection. It means learning to distinguish between the love you think you should want and the love that would actually nourish you. And it means developing the capacity to receive love when it does come, to not sabotage it out of fear or unworthiness or the belief that it can't possibly be real. I've seen this pattern so many times. Someone who has longed for love their entire life finally encounters it, and their immediate response is suspicion, disbelief, self-sabotage, because they've spent so long being rejected or unseen that acceptance feels dangerous, foreign, like it must be a trick. They wait for the other shoe to drop. They look for evidence that this person doesn't really see them, doesn't really want them, will eventually leave like everyone else. And in looking for that evidence, they often create it. They push until the person leaves, and then they say, "See? I knew it wouldn't last." The prophecy fulfills itself. Breaking this pattern requires tremendous courage. It requires being willing to believe that yes, this time it might be different. This person might actually see you. The connection might actually be real. And if you let yourself hope, let yourself trust, let yourself be vulnerable, it might actually last. This hope, this trust, this vulnerability feels impossibly risky after a lifetime of disappointment. But it's the only way through. The only way to receive the love you've been longing for is to be willing to believe it's possible. To take down the walls you've built for protection and let someone in knowing you might get hurt again, but knowing also that it's the only way to finally be met. And when it happens, when you do find that person who sees you, who meets you in your depth, who loves you not despite your complexity but because of it, something shifts. The world doesn't become perfect. The anxiety of existence doesn't disappear, but it becomes bearable. Because you're no longer facing it alone, you have a witness. Someone who confirms that you exist, that you matter, that your presence in this world makes a difference. And that confirmation, that recognition, is one of the most profound experiences a human being can have. This is what Heidegger meant when he talked about authentic being with others. It's not about losing yourself in another person. It's not about merging into oneness or becoming dependent. It's about two authentic people meeting each other in their authenticity, each maintaining their own being while also creating something new between them. A shared world, a mutual recognition, a space where both can be fully themselves and still feel connected. This is rare, incredibly rare, but it's what we're all seeking, whether we know it or not. And here's the beautiful paradox. Once you've experienced this kind of connection, once you've been truly seen and have truly seen another, it changes how you relate to everyone else. You become more patient with imperfect connections, more compassionate with people who can only meet you on the surface, because you understand now that it's not personal. They're doing the best they can with the awareness they have, and you no longer need everyone to see you completely, because you've been seen. Once is enough to confirm that you're real, that you matter, that you exist. This doesn't mean you stop longing for connection. It doesn't mean you become indifferent to loneliness or immune to rejection, but it means you have a different foundation. You're no longer seeking connection to prove you're lovable. You know you're lovable. You've been loved. Instead, you're seeking connection as a way of enriching an existence that's already meaningful, as a way of sharing yourself rather than validating yourself, and that changes everything. Because when you seek connection from a place of wholeness rather than neediness, you make better choices. You can see more clearly who's capable of meeting you and who's not. You can walk away from situations that diminish you without feeling like you're losing your only chance. You can wait for quality rather than settling for availability. And you can bring your full self to connection rather than a diminished, desperate version of yourself. You become, in Heidegger's terms, more free. Not free from the need for others, but free to choose relationships that actually serve your authentic being. This is the wisdom that comes with age, with experience, with suffering. You learn that love is not something you can force or manufacture. It's not something you can earn through performance or strategy. It's something that emerges between people who are both willing to be real, to be vulnerable, to risk being seen. And when it emerges, it has a quality that nothing else can replicate. A feeling of coming home to yourself while also discovering something new. Of being exactly who you are, while also becoming more than you were alone. And perhaps this is the deepest truth about the human desire to love and be loved. It's not just about connection, it's about becoming. About discovering who you are through the mirror of another's recognition. About growing into the fullness of your being, because someone sees your potential and calls it forth. About being challenged and supported and witnessed as you navigate the fundamental uncertainty of existence. Love, in this sense, is not a refuge from being, it's a deepening of being, a way of existing more fully, more authentically, more courageously. This is why its absence hurts so much, because without it, we feel like we're living at half capacity, going through the motions of existence without really existing, playing a part in a story without knowing if anyone's watching or if any of it matters. The longing for love is the longing for confirmation, for the answer to the question, do I matter? Does my existence make a difference? Will anyone care that I was here? And the answer, when it comes when someone truly sees you and loves you, is transformative. Yes, you matter. Your existence makes a difference. I care that you're here. This simple affirmation, given authentically by someone who truly sees you, can heal wounds that have festered for a lifetime. It can give you the courage to keep going when everything feels hopeless. It can remind you that existence, for all its difficulty and pain and uncertainty, is worth living. Because you are not alone. You have been found. You are loved. But even if you haven't found this yet, even if you're still waiting, still longing, still reaching out in the dark, there's something you need to know. The capacity to love and be loved is already within you. It's not something you need to earn or deserve or qualify for. It's part of your basic human being. The fact that you long for connection is evidence that you're built for it. That you have within you everything necessary for the kind of love you seek. You just haven't found the person or people who can meet you there yet. And that's not a verdict on your worth. It's just a fact about timing and chance and the difficulty of authentic connection in a world full of people hiding behind masks. So you keep going. You keep becoming more yourself. You keep doing the work of authenticity, of self-knowledge, of clarity about what you need and who you are. You keep risking vulnerability even when it's terrifying. You keep reaching out even when you've been rejected before. You keep hoping even when hope feels foolish, because this is what it means to be human. To exist in the face of uncertainty, to long for connection without any guarantee that it will come, to keep loving even when love is difficult. And in those quiet moments, When you're alone with your longing, when you're sitting with the ache of not yet having found what you seek, remember this. You are not broken. You are not too much or not enough. You are a human being, thrown into existence, doing your best to navigate a fundamentally uncertain world. And the fact that you want to love and be loved, the fact that you feel this longing so deeply, is not a weakness. It's your humanity. It's what connects you to every person who has ever lived. We all carry this same hunger. We all walk around with this same hope. We're all looking for the same thing. Someone to see us, someone to know us, someone to confirm that we are real. And someday, if you keep walking, if you keep being yourself, if you keep staying open even when it hurts, you'll find them, or they'll find you. And in that moment of recognition, when two authentic beings finally see each other, the loneliness won't disappear completely, the anxiety of existence won't vanish, but it will become something you can bear. Because you won't be bearing it alone anymore. You'll have a companion, a witness, a fellow traveler who knows what it's like to be thrown into this strange and beautiful and terrifying existence, and together you'll keep walking, keep loving, keep becoming, keep choosing again and again to be here, to be real, to be seen, and to see another in return. That is the deepest human desire. Not just to love or to be loved, but to exist authentically with another, to build a shared world where both of you can be fully yourselves, to face the uncertainty of existence together, knowing that whatever comes, you have been seen, you have been known, you have mattered to someone. And in a universe that offers no guarantees, no ultimate meaning, no certainty about anything, that connection is as close as we get to the sacred. It is the light that makes the darkness bearable, the warmth that makes existence feel like home. So carry your longing gently, honor it, let it teach you, let it clarify what matters, let it make you more compassionate toward yourself and others. Because everyone you meet is carrying the same longing, even if they hide it well. Everyone is hoping to be seen, to be known, to matter to someone. And when you remember this, when you really understand it, you can meet others with more gentleness, more patience, more recognition of the shared vulnerability we all carry simply by being human. And maybe, in extending that recognition to others, in being willing to see them even when they can't quite see you, you're practicing for the connection you seek. You're becoming the person capable of the love you long for. You're learning that love is not just about receiving, it's about giving, about witnessing, about creating a space where another person can be authentic. And in doing that, in being that for others, you become more yourself, more real, more alive. And that authenticity, that aliveness, is what will eventually attract the recognition you seek. Like calling to like. Depth, recognizing depth. Authenticity, meeting authenticity. Until then, you wait. You hope. You keep going. You keep being yourself even when no one seems to notice. You keep loving even when it's not returned. You keep reaching out even when you're tired of reaching. Because this is what it means to be human. To persist in the face of uncertainty. To hope in the face of disappointment. To love in the face of loneliness. And to believe, even when belief is difficult, that somewhere in this vast and uncertain existence, there is someone looking for exactly what you have to offer. Someone who will see you and think, there you are, I've been looking for you. And when that moment comes, all the loneliness, all the longing, all the years of waiting will suddenly make sense. Not because they were necessary, not because they were part of some grand plan, but because they taught you to recognize the real thing when it finally arrived. They taught you not to settle for less than authentic connection. They gave you the clarity to know what matters and the courage to keep seeking it. They made you into someone capable of sustaining the kind of love you've always longed for. And that is its own kind of grace, its own kind of meaning, its own quiet answer to the question every human being carries in their heart. Do I matter? Will I be loved? Am I alone? And the answer, when you find the courage to keep looking, keep hoping, keep being yourself, is always the same. You matter. You will be loved. You are not alone. The journey to that recognition may be long. It may be painful. It may test every ounce of faith and courage you possess. But it is the journey of being human. And in walking it with honesty and openness and hope, You are already living the answer to your own deepest longing. You are already, in your willingness to love and be loved, participating in the sacred work of being truly alive.